Hello, everyone, and happy Monday. Well, we are talking about women's health, which is so critical, and all of us women go through this journey, right, from being getting the menstruation all the way to menopause. But today, we wanted to focus on somewhere in the middle where women get fibroids, or maybe at a later stage. When we get the fibroids in our uterus, that's what we are talking about today with Maria. Maria is a functional nutritionist focusing on women's health. She's joining me live from California. Thank you so much, Maria, for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, let's just understand the reason, right? Why women get fibroids in their uterus. What is the reason behind it?
Well, the cause of fibroids is really unknown. It's sort of a mystery, but there are several factors that go into increasing the likelihood that a woman will develop fibroids. And the first one is genetics. So if a woman's grandmother, mother, sister, or aunt have had fibroids, then that increases her likelihood that she will have fibroids too. It doesn't necessarily mean she will absolutely get them, but her chances of getting them are definitely higher. Exposure to exogenous hormones is another big factor. So these are external hormones that we are exposed to. So those are like man-made chemicals. These are things like pesticides, herbicides, and plastics. We're all familiar that these are endocrine disruptors, and this is one way that it can manifest in our bodies. Some women are exposed to these exogenous hormones through in utero when they're in their mother's belly. And so their mother might have had exposure or have been taking some hormone therapy for some reason or another. And another reason under the exogenous hormones is if a woman was given birth control at a very early age to manage, symptoms like heavy bleeding or irregular periods or something. Another factor is poor liver detoxification. So the liver is working hard to detoxify the exogenous hormones that we just talked about, but also the hormones that we produce ourselves. So any used and unused hormones has to be processed by the liver and excreted out through our bowels. And if the liver isn't doing it at the right pace, then these hormones can get recirculated into our body and cause more problems. Other factors is blood sugar. So if a woman is eating a lot of high sugary foods, high processed foods, a lot of carbs, starchy carbs from refined flours, that kind of thing, then her blood sugar is likely not to be stable, and she's going to have a lot of spikes and dips. And that causes a lot of hormone imbalance as the cascade of hormones happens. And nutrient deficiencies like low vitamin C or low iodine can also be a big factor. And this relates to the thyroid as well. So a woman's thyroid health is an important component to fibroids. And then adrenal health as well. So if high levels of stress and the inability of the adrenals to manage that stress is another big factor in fibroids. And one last thing is race and ethnicity. So women of color have a higher chance of developing fibroids than white women. And Black women in particular have a 3 times higher risk than white women.
Okay, well, there are a lot of reasons you pointed out. It's hard, right? So now, what will happen? Like, how do I know? Someone know, like, that you have fibroids? Are you going to start getting some pain on in the lower belly area, or what happens?
Yeah. Well, usually it's found in a pelvic exam when you go for your annual exam. A lot of times fibroids will be really small and a woman won't know, and perhaps the doctor will tell her, oh, you have a fibroid, but she won't feel anything. And you don't really start to feel anything or get any symptoms until they start to grow a little bit larger. Um, and when they start to grow larger, that's when you can start to have some problems. So to kind of understand the problems you can have, I want to go through the different types of fibroids that you can have. So there are 4 different types. They're called subserosal, submucosal, intramural, and pedunculated. And while the names aren't important to remember, it's sort of the location of where they are that is. So the subserosal fibroids are fibroids that grow under the surface layer of the outer wall of the uterus. So these tend to grow outward, and these can put pressure on the nerve or on the organs surrounding the uterus. And so you can have so these are the organs are like the bladder and the colon. So you can start to have pain and pressure there. And the pain can sometimes radiate to the lower back or the legs. But then you can also have symptoms like frequent urination or constipation because they're of the pressure that it's putting on those organs. There are the submucosal fibroids, which are fibroids that grow in the inner cavity of the uterus. And these cause more symptoms like heavy bleeding and cause problems with fertility because it makes it hard for the egg to implant, and with pregnancy, with carrying the baby to term. It also can cause painful sex when they get to be of a certain size. So the next one is intramural, and intramural are just fibroids that are within the uterine lining. And the pain associated with this really depends on which direction the fibroid decides to grow. So if it's growing more outward, then it's going to be the pain related to the subserosal fibroids, where it's putting pressure on other organs. Or if it grows more towards the inside, then you're going to have symptoms like the submucosal, where you have painful sex, heavy bleeding, and problems with fertility and pregnancy. And then there's one more, and those are called pedunculated. And these fibroids grow on stalks. So there's an actual stalk and they're hanging off of them. And the problem here, I think for the most part, these don't, and where they're located obviously makes a difference. But the stalk sometimes can get twisted, and that can cause pain for a woman as well.
Okay, so this is a quick 10-minute session that we bring on a daily basis, only education, not meant to be any treatment or anything like that. So just for a full disclaimer before, because we're discussing a very sensitive topic here. So I think the last question is just an overview of the treatment options, right, for fibroids.
Yeah, well, I don't, the best treatment really depends on each woman and her story and her circumstances. Certainly there are, the surgical options that they can go down. But what I really wanted to talk about is more the alternative to those options, and really telling women that they have the power to take control of their body and really do things that can make a difference for them. So when a woman is diagnosed with a fibroid, it's usually small, and the doctor might say, oh, we'll wait and see, or we'll watch and monitor, and perhaps tell them that there's nothing they can do. except maybe go on the birth control pill or, get an IUD or something. So this is where women really need to take control and understand that that doesn't mean that they don't have to do anything. That means not to do nothing, because there's a lot that they can do in terms of stepping back and really evaluating what's going on in their life, because the fibroid is a big red flag that something in their life is out of balance. And this is their opportunity to really take a step back and look at that, so they can look and see, how are they taking care of themselves? How are they sleeping? Are they getting enough sleep? How are they eating? How is their stress level, and are they managing it in a good way? And what can they do to kind of lower the stress? So it's a real opportunity to really make some big changes in their diet and in their lifestyle, so that they can eliminate the symptoms that they have, because the symptoms I spoke of are specific to the fibroid, but there are other symptoms that women also have when they have fibroids, because their body's a little bit out of whack, it's a little bit out of balance, so they could start to have allergies, acne, other things that are hormone related but not specific to fibroids themselves. So when they start to make these little shifts, they can really start to see an improvement in their overall health and feel better.
Okay, and then any other dietary, I know you're a nutritionist, any other dietary recommendations, like if after the procedure or during or prevention, that you like to share?
Well, my biggest advice to women with fibroids is to really reduce the amount of inflammatory foods. And that's the three biggest are gluten, dairy, and refined sugar. And that can often make a big difference in terms of balancing their hormones and alleviating some of the symptoms that they have, and then just overall feeling better. They'll have more energy, be able to sleep better, those kinds of things.
Sure. Well, thank you so much. I think this is so important for all the women, that most of the women are diagnosed with fibroids, so even if they're smaller or bigger, right? A lot of women have fibroids, and they sometimes dissolve themselves as well. I mean, I went through that. That's why I'm sharing this thing, that I had small fibroids and somehow they dissolve themselves. And then, I didn't have any problem. But for women who have bigger fibroids, they have to do all the things that you just talked about, right?
Right, absolutely. Like I said, the ones that are small sometimes remain small and dissolve on their own, or sometimes they can grow larger. And when they grow larger is when they start to be a problem.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Maria, for joining us again. We are just bringing educational sessions on a daily basis. We are also launching a platform and an app within the next month. So super excited, and stay tuned, and we will be letting everyone know when we're ready with the app I would say sometime in April timeframe. With that, thank you so much and have a great week, everyone. Thank you, Maria, so much for joining me. Bye-bye.